everyone, I hope you're all okay. My name is Gwen Gibson and I'm a nutritional therapist and I specialize in gut health. So today in this video, I wanted to talk to you about the 4 phases of digestion and the cephalic, the oral phase, the gastric phase and the intestinal phase of digestion in a very straightforward way. So we often talk, when we talk about gut health, we often talk about the microbiome and the diversity of gut bacteria, about the food that we eat and how to feed our gut properly. But we don't often talk enough, I think, of the actual mechanisms behind digesting food. This can actually be the most difficult thing to address for some of my clients. For some of my clients, I just ask them to go gluten-free for 4 weeks and it's not a problem. But when I ask some of them to sit down at the dinner table, try to have a nice, quiet and restful meal, pay attention to their food, that can be a lot more challenging and I get less compliance actually. So number one of the phases of digestion is called the cephalic phase. And did you know that digestion begins in your brain? And the cephalic phase is actually the anticipation of food. It's the actually looking at your food, smelling the food, cooking a nice dinner. All of this will trigger the cephalic phase. And why is it so important? It's really important because some studies are showing that in that phase, 20 to 40% of enzymes, digestive enzymes and digestive juices are produced by your body before food even enters your body, really, which is incredible. And that's why we need to really pay attention to this. So or to help with this is basically next time for your next meal is just stop, look at your food, smell your food. Hopefully it smells really nice. It helps when you're the person who does the cooking. It's a bit of a consolation if you're cooking all the time. And just like, make sure you take your time and you're being mindful before you actually start your meal. Then we move on to the oral phase. So the oral phase is when the food enters your mouth and you produce, in your mouth, you produce an enzyme called amylase. And this enzyme will break down the food. And chewing in that phase is really important because you're exposing as much food as possible to these enzymes. So you're really starting and facilitating the digestion of carbohydrate in your mouth before it even gets to the rest of your body. So I really encourage you for this phase to chew your food. That's why it's so important. Especially if you're suffering from digestive disorder, for everybody really, but if you've got IBS or IBD, it's really important to take off the burden from the rest of your body and chew your food properly. What you could do also is put down your fork and a knife in between each mouthful, and that could be helpful to teach you to slow down, I suppose. The third phase is the gastric phase. That is really important also. This is when your food reaches the stomach and your gastric juices will be released by your stomach. And one important one would be hydrochloric acid. And the role of shortened name is HCl is to sterilize your food and get rid of all bacteria and things that are not really too good to enter your body. And so it's really, really important that you release enough stomach acid. It's really your first line of defense in terms of pathogen and bacteria. And what can go wrong is, and why sometimes are we not producing enough stomach acid, is when we're stressed. So when you stress, you enter what is called the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight. And in that phase, you cannot be in the parasympathetic system, which is the rest and digest. You can't do both together. So often we don't produce enough stomach juices when we're stressed. And so I often said to my clients, if you stress, just don't eat. It's absolutely, it's probably better, maybe go for a walk, talk to your friends, and try to make sure to be in a relaxed frame of mind. Another thing that can prevent the releases of HCl is a proton inhibitor. So they use commonly for when you're suffering from heartburn, and what they do is they stop the release of stomach acid, and you can see how that can become a problem, and our proton inhibitor can be a huge contributing factor for gut infections. So if you are on proton inhibitor, I would, especially long term, I mean, you should be on those for a couple of months and just have a review with your GP and think about weaning yourself off those. Because again, stomach acid has got a very important function. Age also, as we're aging, we produce less stomach acid. This is part of normal aging. So even more so important to not be stressed when you're eating your food. Certain things like apple cider vinegar can help. Bitter foods. So sometimes in some countries we have a salad before, or bitter food, watercress or rocket, and all of this can help to produce the production of stomach acid. H. pylori is a huge contributing factor for not producing enough stomach acid. So if you've got heartburn or you're on proton inhibitor, I encourage you to contact your GP practice and get tested for H. pylori. The last phase is called the intestinal phase, and it's when your food enters the small intestine, and that's where you will be absorbing food. And what happens is that your pancreas will release pancreatic enzymes. And so you've got amylase and pancreatic protease to digest the protein, and lipase to digest fats. And sometimes that can go wrong, or you don't produce enough of this. So I see that from stool tests that I do for clients, because of the stress or because of the cascade of the cephalic phase, oral phase or gastric phase hasn't happened properly, and it's got a knock-on effect to the rest for the pancreas to release those gastric juices, enzymes. In that phase also, what happens is that if you're eating a meal that contains fat, your body will release bile, and the role of bile is to emulsify the fat and help with the absorption of the fat. Now, if that's not working properly, sometimes because I see it a lot actually in clinic, and that's something that is often overlooked. Difficulty not producing enough bile acid, or the bile acid is a bit sluggish. And we work on that with clients, you know, apples, raw carrots, a lot of things. Artichoke are really good for liver function, milk thistle. So it depends really on the individuals, but we work on that mechanism as well. Because if you're not producing enough of this, you are at risk of certain fat absorbing vitamins, or vitamins that need fats to get absorbed. So they're vitamin A, D, E, and K, and that you can suffer from malabsorption because your bile acid or your liver is not producing enough bile acid, or the composition of your bile is not good enough, or too thick and sluggish. And so the last phase is when the food will then enter your large intestine, and this is where most of your gut bacteria lives. And what is it will feed on the leftover from digestion. So often it's undigestible. So it's undigestible fiber basically. But what happened in that phase is that all of the things haven't happened properly. You can get some big lumps of food that can get to your large intestine, or if you're not producing enough bile acid, you can get some loose stool, you can get, and again, some bloating. So these are really important and can be contributing factor for what is happening further down the digestive tract, so in your large intestine. So I've explained something really quickly that is quite complicated, but hopefully you get the gist of it. Start from the top and make sure you get all of these phases right to optimize digestion. So I really encourage you for your next meal to not only think about what you're eating and how you're eating. It's really, really important. I hope you found this useful, and I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.